we go. Hello, hello. My name is Sheena, and this is Gene Key Contemplations for the Sacred Wild. It is 222, so I invite us into a conscious breath and just allowing ourselves to land in this magical portal. You know, the reason that I choose 222 is because it's an angel number and it allows us to open up a portal, a channel. This is a vibrational world and it responds to our intentions. And when we can be so intentional with our time, we can create wormholes to travel through. And this is the archetype of the magician this week, which happens to be in my Gene Keys chart. This is my vocation. And you can learn about your Gene Keys chart by going onto genekeys.com, clicking on my hologenetic profile and entering your natal chart information. And it'll give you this amazing snapshot and overview of the sky in the moment that you were born, to give you an alchemical breakdown of the DNA structures that are operating through our emotional body. And so I love studying the gene keys and astrology because it allows us to remember that we are the co-creators of this universe and we get to be so intentional with how we spend our time and our energy, which is our most precious resource. So thank you for being here now. Thank you for making the decision to do some shadow work and take a look at adding more conscious awareness into the frequencies that we're moving through. So this week we're exploring Gene Key 60. This is the shadow of limitation. This is the gift of realism. And this is the Siddhi, or the divine essence of justice. So I invite you to resource yourself. During this call, I am going to be sharing my own personal explanation, contemplation, discovery, curiosity, adventure journey that I've had with this gene and how it's showing up in the present day. And so I'm going to pull in some of the astrology that we've got going on today and this week. And I'd love to start us off in a prayer. So, yeah, we're going to call in the directions. If you are checking some of my posts out on the Mighty Network, you will have come across this prayer this week. I posted an audio of it, and I've just decided I'm going to use this time to really set the intention to really open the channel to receive the magic of this gene. This is allowing our guides to guide us through this conversation together. So I'm going to invite us into a meditative state. And, you know, of course, this is just an invitation. So if you're listening to this and you're folding laundry or you're doing the dishes, then just know that I'm just along for the journey with you. And we can create a pause out of any moment that we're in. And this is the invitation to create a pause, to add more awareness into whatever it is you're doing, whether you come to a place of stillness or not. So maybe you soften your gaze or close down your gaze. Maybe you don't. Maybe you're driving. Regardless, I do invite you to become aware of your breath now. And let's just begin to allow some deep, grounded breaths coming in all the way from the most bottom pit of your stomach, of your belly, and just imagine it just filling with air, expanding all the way up maybe holding for a beat at the top. And on your exhale, I invite you to soften your shoulders and just let something go. And now let's do that in your own time, in your own rhythm. The invitation, taking deep, deep conscious breaths, maybe holding for a beat at the top. In that moment, in that pause, just allowing in just a breath of gratitude, of inspiration, of spirit, of communion, of merging. And then in your own time, in your own way, exhaling, breathing out back into another whimsical breath. Breathing this energy that we're cultivating together in. Feel how we change the vibration. Today I've got incense going. I've got some Palo Santo here. I've got this sanctuary that's been building here as I've been doing yoga every morning. I've built an altar here, been coming out here to pray, to journal. Every day creating more safety and freedom in my body, and I get to experience it in my surroundings. And that's why we're gathered here today. That's what Gene Keys are all about, is creating more devotion to creating pauses and moments of reflection so that we can come to these places and just contemplate, just turn on the observer. What are we aware of? So let's now call in the gateways of the guardians of the East, to the medicine of the air that breathes us, to the magic of new beginnings as we set out on this journey, like the rising sun, the new dawn, that wonder and magic of starting something new. We call in the medicine of the East, inviting you into the ceremony, into this space, into this life now. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Breathing in that medicine of air now. Let's take one more conscious breath as we call in the wisdom of the elders of the medicine of air to be with us now. We come around the medicine wheel. We invite in the gateways of the guardians of the South, to the medicine of fire that roars in our bellies, to the wisdom of our passion, of our sensuality, to this fire that fuels us with the great spirit of mystery. We call you into this moment, into this ceremony, into this life now, to Archangel Michael, to the blue light ray, to the warrior angels. We call upon your power, your protection, your faith, your courage, and your strength to guide us faithfully through this journey. For connecting us between the physical and the spiritual realms, we thank you for your wisdom, for your intuitive guidance. To the medicine of the South, let's breathe you into this moment now, breathing it in, feeling the fire, the passion that roars in our bellies on our inhale. Releasing that fire like a dragon on the exhale. to the guardians of the gateways of the West, to the medicine of water, to the deep intuitive memory that flows within ourselves, within our emotional body, connecting us with the spirit of the divine. We call you into this moment, into this ceremony now. To Archangel Gabriel, to the white light ray, to the messenger angels, the patrons of communication. We call upon your purity, your harmony, and your sacredness to guide us on this journey, in this ceremony, in the celebration of life, in this body now. To the gateways of the West, we integrate this wisdom by breathing you in this moment. Thanking you for being here now in this ceremony. To the medicine of water. Oh. To the guardians of the North. To the medicine of the earth, of Pachamama. To our physical reality and our connection through the earth with our physical body, through our senses. We call upon your medicine to be with us now in this moment, in this ceremony. To Archangel Uriel, to the red light ray, to the angels of light, to the ones who know, and to those who respond, to those who seek truth. We call upon the wisdom of your lifetimes of experiences to guide us in this ceremony, in our bodies, through our connection with the earth now. For your wise counsel, for your ability to see beyond. We thank you for your medicine. Oh. Fully allowing our bodies to integrate the medicine as we move over again on our medicine wheel. Before me stands Raphael, behind me Gabriel, on my right hand Michael, and on my left Uriel. And now we call upon the guardians of the above, to Archangel Metatron, to our star nations and our galactic family, to our starseed soul family. We call you into this moment, into this ceremony, into this life now. To the medicine of the above, we inhale in with thanks, pausing for a beat, being with the medicine of these mystical memories and moments coming through this Metatron Archangel. We exhale, leaving behind anything that no longer serves you, and updating and upgrading and evolving through our new ascension codes. Thank you for being with us now. Thank you for your medicine. To the guardians of below, Archangel Sandalphon. To you who are known by 1,000 names, and to you who are the unnameable one. Let's breathe that in. That great mystery that breathes and flows through us. to the medicine of just is, of the sacredness of our radical aliveness. As we seek just is, we allow ourselves to soften into the radical aliveness of the just is. Knowing the paradox of being both, the fight of the good fight, the hero seeking redemption, the innocence of it all. The pause, the sweet spot. The innocent aliveness of knowing that what just is so beyond our scope of knowing. But what we do know is that at some point, the world as we know it will shift and it will change. The ways that we operate will come to an end, and maybe they'll come to a screeching halt, or maybe, just maybe, through all of our archangel support, we will be slowly and gently guided and nudged with whispers that come to us from all of our elements and all the ways that Gaia connects with us, through all of our messengers, with the radical aliveness that things must change. And sometimes we will be asked to be the catalyst for change, for good or for bad. Sometimes we'll break hearts. Sometimes we'll say things that activate and triggers others who are not ready to hear that, projected outside of themselves. There will be people that want to dim our lights when they feel we burn too bright, and we will have to remember that we are beyond the limitations of the structures that anyone puts around us. And as we dismantle the structures around us, we remember that they are one in the same. At some point, we must evolve beyond our name, our personal reality, the star nation of our seed origin, our family, our tight circle that at some point binds us and restricts us from moving beyond into the next phase of our evolution. And we will always have the free will to get to decide when we stretch beyond the limitations of our mind, of our Maya. We get to transcend beyond the realism that we collectively constructed and bought into. We collectively, consciously created this world. We created these structures in order that we would transcend them, that we would evolve beyond them. When we needed a leader, we showed up as leaders and we innovated. We were pioneers. We pressed forward because we weren't just staying stagnant. Change in perpetuity is who we are. And so as we bring our prayers to an end and our conversation to a new beginning, I invite you to think about what systems of oppression are you still operating within your own psyche? Where are you telling yourself no? But most importantly, why? Because not are we depriving ourselves, but we're asking ourselves, where in it are we ready to transcend and evolve? And where are we meeting that growth's edge of discomfort? Because this ask of us is bigger than the container that we've been holding. And in order to hold more light, we need to prove to ourselves the redemption, the hero of our own story, that we got what it takes to be in the next iteration of who we be. Yeah. Who do you be? Who do you be marching forward? What do you stand for? How do you use your voice? And how do you invoice with your voice? How do you find worth in your voice? How are you going beyond your own limiting beliefs, transcending what you thought was real, what could be real, and tuning into a bigger world, a new universe where you get to transcend every single thing that you've been told, because your truth is the only truth that matters. And from that place, from that creative Maya, that mystical place of wonder, when we return to the limitless place of our soul, our child self, the limitless self, we get to start creating imprints and bringing them in every single day, in every single way, in every way that we spend our energy, our most precious resource, our voice, our breath, our time, our energy. All of it is sacred. This is part of the ring of sanctity, the ring of Gaia. Along the ring of Gaia has the gene of sanctity, justice, sanctity. What's the other one? Sacrifice. This is the ring of Gaia. This is transcending beyond the self. If it feels in alignment, you may come back into this moment with your eyes open. Right now, we're going through an incredible shift on our planet. We're going beyond what we've been taught is truth. What is truth? At some point, we were told there was some right and there was some wrong. And now we get to transcend beyond those polarities. We don't have to make someone right or wrong. We get to transcend beyond polarity. And when we do, justice is just is. For me to find peace, I don't have to be right, because I can have compassion, because I can have empathy. And my empathy can connect me with you intimately beyond my need to love you, because there's a power over you through my limited belief system that someone must be right. This gene, walking this beauty way, means transcending the need for anything to be right or therefore wrong. Love is our true essence. When we do our shadow work, we go through every single bit of our story. We get to revisit every single aspect where we were taught, where we were belittled and thought that we were less than, less deserving, not privileged, some kind of oppressive story where we created some narrative and we painted this story that kept us in a box. Maybe it was a religion that kept us in a box. Maybe it was the rules imposed on us by our family. Maybe it has been the rules imposed on us by our government structures. You know, this gene is asking ourselves, where have we had rules put on ourselves? Because we co-created this. We created this Maya to have these rules. We have spiritual laws. We know now in the spirit of science that we are constricted. We are limited. We come into this being limited by the physical reality of Gaia through gravity. And that's the core wound of our limitation, that we can't see all of the other dimensions. And yet some of us come here with access to them. And in some cultures, they're the way showers. And in other cultures, they might be oppressed. Richard Rudd talks about a story in this Gene Key about a man, a good and ethical, moral man, who in desperate times steals a loaf of bread to feed his family. He's convicted, he's caught, and serves 19 years in prison. The code or the punishment, the punishment doesn't seem to fit the crime. It seems unjust. Desperate times that this good and moral and ethical man steals, extracts resources to give to the poor, to the needy, to the less fortunate, to his own blood, to his children, his family. And he's convicted of a crime through it and sentenced, thrown the book at him, 19 years. And when he gets out and he goes back out into the world, a bishop sees him, takes him in. He's been trying to get a job. He's been trying to go about his world, but everybody's treating him like a criminal. He just spent 19 years being treated like a criminal. So everyone has a stereotype that this good and ethical, moral man that stole food for his family, that story's been washed away and diluted to this fact that the stereotype of this hardened man who did 19 years of serving. This bishop takes him in. This opulent bishop takes him in, gives him refuge, gives him sanctuary. This first night, what does the man do? He steals his dishes and he runs off. He thinks there's no way that I'm going to be a good standing member of society. I have nothing. He doesn't see the gift that's in front of him with the generosity of the bishop to take him in. And he thinks he needs to steal from him because that's what the system has taught him. That's what 19 years of hardened rules and structures of oppression in prison has taught him, that he needs to steal in order to make it out there. And as soon as he goes out there with all these dishes, he gets caught. And he thinks, oh, fuck, now what? My life's over. I'm going to go back into prison for God knows now how long it's going to be this time. Now, second offense. Everybody already thinks I'm a criminal. And he goes back to court. And the justice of the story is that the bishop looks at him and wipes away the charges. He didn't steal that from me. It's a story that got rewritten in the grapevine. I gave him that. By the way, you left your candlesticks too. Here, take these too. Take more. The man's freed. He leaves with the dishes and the candlesticks, with more than he ever could have imagined. But more than that, the generosity that he leaves with is that for no good reason, that bishop took him in. And that bishop had mercy and had compassion on him. And he left him better than he found him. And he didn't have to do that. He got robbed. He could have been angry at the man. He could have thrown the book at him. He had every right to. Someone stole from him in his own house. Someone that he was generous to. But he chose not to. And instead he left that man better than he. And that's the gift of this divine essence of justice, leaving people that better than you found them. And sometimes we are going to go out into the world into really dark places. And we're going to have to ask ourselves, why am I here? Why is the world punishing me and leaving me here. And it'll be up to us to say, what can I do here? How can I be of service here? How can I leave this place a little better than I found it? How can I be the light? How can I purify this space? The same way that we purify our space. We light a candle. We activate the crystal grid with all of the other light workers in the world, and we declare this space sacred. Typically, I call in the directions and I do my ceremony work before I come onto these calls. But today, in the spirit of my gene key of vocation, in the transparency of who I am, in the justice of who I am, love it or leave it. To be around me is to be around someone that treats life as something sacred. So I had a magical experience, still floating, with my sister, Jamie, my friend tour yesterday. She came to my home. She came to my little holy temple out here in the woods. And she's someone that I do deep, deep spiritual work with. And it was such an honor to have her come here and to pull some cards and to go into that mystical space that we go into. And the greatest gift that I've received through sisterhood and through my spiritual awakening is the gift of mysticism. Is the gift of people that are so confidently and authentically them that they allow me to be authentically me in all of my starseed self without apology. So I'm going to share a story about how this gene feels like it's coming through this week. And then maybe after that, we might go to the archetypal wisdom from the Wisdom Keeper Oracle deck and share those contemplation questions, sort of in a free flow. The incense got me, woo! You know, the essence, the realism, the mysticism in the realism, because my reality is a very magical, mystical place. And I love holding these spaces to create that energy that I hope to ripple out in all of these calls, however they land, whether I'm in your ear while you're doing the laundry, or we get to have face-to-face discussions and drop-ins as more people come into this space, which is our collective prayer. So astral projections, remote doing, remote viewing. These are conversations, these are topics that I have in conversation with my sister Jamie. And I was reflecting, and I've had a few reflections that have come up over the past year around ceremony space with the Lakota tradition of peyote. And I have deeply felt my own systems of oppression in patriarchal wounds, ancestral collective wounds that have come through me through the medicine of peyote when I have come around it. And I have had my own experiences of oppression. I am a survivor. I am a thriver. I'm someone that has experienced the sexual assaults. I've been through abusive relationships. I've been in, domestic partnership through a marriage. Been a survivor of a dysfunctional family. And through it all, I allowed myself to stay pretty open-hearted, allowed myself to tap into the magic that's here, but it's not always easy. And so there's a part of me that still carries that wound of oppression, of being a highly sensitive individual, really impacted by the stories that not just I'm telling myself, but that I'm feeling in my field. And so I sat in a peyote ceremony last year, my first one with the Lakota tribe, and I was deeply triggered. It was a very activating experience for me. And I didn't like that there were so much rules around it. I was calling it the OCD of plant medicine, and I didn't like it. There's these old traditions, and they felt very masculine. They felt very outdated. They felt very patriarchal and oppressive. In my experience of holding the ceremony land space for the ceremony, holding the space for the ceremony, I felt like the medicine man was being frivolous with the money that he wanted had a certain expectation of how much he wanted to charge, and then was frivolous with the ways that we were compensating him, wasted an air ticket because he didn't show up for the flight and we had to buy him another plane ticket. I felt it wasn't in alignment. It wasn't fully resonant. When he came out, there was an energy with him that I had a resistance to, and I had to recognize my own victim consciousness coming through, because I was married to a Mexican man, and here I was, and we lived in Texas together, and here was a Mexican man from Texas coming out. So I was somatically charged up with my own victim story around that culture. But regardless, I sat for the ceremony, and I learned a lot from the medicine of peyote, the grandfather medicine. It taught me divine structure. It taught me to be my own authority. It taught me how to be more in touch with my own divine masculine, where I have a real deep connection with my divine feminine that doesn't always feel as in touch with the sacred masculine, because there's definitely a wounded masculine within me. And I'm still trying to cultivate a deeper connection to that sacred masculine within me. And so for this peyote ceremony, I was feeling that deep charge. And I've been working with that to cultivate a deeper relationship with my divine masculine. 40 days of devotion was a hashtag challenge that I learned about from the Fluorescence Network and through the Deja Blue podcast, which then inspired me into the Fluorescence Network, which was brought on by Deja Blue. This was a practice of honoring the divine masculine so that our feminine could dance, so she could be in her flow, but creating the structure. So this whole year has been for me a commitment, a devotion to my magic, to my practice, to my energy work, to my astral projection, to my multidimensional self, my ability to channel and remote view. And I'm still accessing and unlocking so many gifts around this. And as I sat with my sister yesterday, I was unlocking an experience that I just got to have through my starseed astral projected self, and also through my physical soul family starseed self, where there was a woman in our community that chose to go to a peyote ceremony this past weekend. Same community that I had gathered with last year, except the medicine man brought his wife. And this has been an unfolding this year of more women coming into these traditionally men or male dominated, maybe that's my projection, but dominated spaces. My human self didn't feel safe to go to the peyote ceremony this past weekend, though I was invited. And as usual, because this wasn't the first peyote ceremony that we've had that's been around the community this past year, I always send my prayers in. I sit by my altar and I truly do guide my prayers in, because when the medicine of peyote comes around me, I don't have to touch it. I feel the spirit of him. And he comes through my energetic Taurus field, and I start praying to him. and I start working with him. My multidimensional medicine woman self starts reaping the rewards of the medicine, and my human body self is still learning to cultivate safety and freedom in my body, to be my own authority, my own justice within me before I can commit to sitting in another ceremony in the physical. So I'm integrating this beautiful experience that my partner shared with me. One of our sisters sat in the ceremony, and right after she came out of the ceremony, she had a conversation with my beloved. And she said, I want to share with you what happened. I had a really transformative experience in peyote. And she thought to share it with him right away, which he thought to share it with me right away. These are the angels of communication. These are the patrons of communication. These are the angels, the messengers that come through all these open channels, wherever they can get through. This is the medicine of peyote. This is the wisdom of Lakota tradition when it can come through pure channels. This is the gift when we see reality as coming through the divine channels, not being limited to just have been in that structure of the ceremony space over this weekend that my human self wasn't feeling safe to go to. So my sister reflects and shares with my partner. She said, you know, I really had a hard time at that ceremony. She said, Rob, I felt like I had been doing so much work to break out this idea that I was being ruled by someone, these rigid structures of oppression. And she said, the medicine man was telling me when to use the bathroom because I wasn't supposed to break the circle once the ceremony had started. How's a man supposed to tell me when I can use the restroom? When I went out to get other medicine, more medicine, he told me no. Repeatedly, he told me no. And I sat there with that power, that feeling of how dare this man? How dare I stand here, my own authority? After all the deconstruction of patriarchy and oppression within my own psyche that I've been doing, why am I sitting here? Just because that man told me that I had to sit here. So she broke the circle to have a cigarette. And as she smoked the cigarette, a woman came over to her, the medicine man's wife. And she said, I see you, sister. And I see you struggling. Go use the restroom. Resource yourself the way that you deserve to be resourced. No one should ever take that away from you. That's your fundamental birthright. And that medicine there, that medicine's for you. Go and have as much of that medicine as you would like, whenever you want it, because it's here for you. That's why we're here, to serve you. I see you, sister, and I see all the work that you are doing. Thank you for being here. She went back after she resourced herself, a changed woman. Not because of the medicine man shaman that's been sitting with the medicine for X amount of years and chopped the wood to a certain shape over a certain period of time and said a certain prayer in a certain way, using his left hand on the 8th of the night with all the rules and structures and form. The medicine came through to her through the magic and mystery because of the space that the masculine had cultivated for the divine feminine, the spirit of Ma, to flow through. This gene reminds us that we need sacred structure in order for us to evolve, in order for the femininity to flow through. We need a routine. We need a structure. How beautiful when we have balance and when we have harmony, when we're in right relation with other, when there's an even energy exchange. It's beyond a tit for tat. It's just a generative economy that's sustainable because it's resourceful. It's fully resourced. We fully resource ourselves every single breath. Let's do that now consciously. Just a hand over our heart, connecting with the spirit of the divine that lives and breathes us. Mm. And the tarot card, this is the card of justice, balanced by the scales. This is the paradox. This is one of the more challenging gene keys to unlock. I remember seeing a Merkaba in front of my forehead when I started studying this gene. Not the first time around, but deeply coming back to it somatically to process it in a different way. My multidimensional self, I know, sent my multidimensional self to that peyote ceremony in order that I would receive medicine from a human that I'm connected with through my community that could say, hey, sister, I want you to know that the peyote space is evolving and I'm getting to experience it in real time. Last year at that ceremony, she wasn't there. And there was a rigid structure of tradition that was honored through the Lakota traditions, and how beautiful that got to be my entry point, my origin point for coming into the peyote medicine space. And one solar return later, after different journeys of being my own authority, of committing to my own divine direction, of choosing, discerning, when is it safe for me to be there and when is it not safe for me to be there? Maybe if I had been in that ceremony this past weekend and I had that experience, or I overheard that experience of my sister going through that, I would have suffered. I could have caused suffering. The suffering to my psyche was too much for my human self to undergo. So my multidimensional self went so that my human self could be safe on this earth, in this experience, in this human body now, safe at home, praying to the medicine of altar, praying to my community at my altar from my sanctuary. And through the mystical experience of the ethers, my sister could come as a divine messenger and channel of love to immediately come out of the ceremony to phone up my husband, my beloved. Oh, I love when I do that, Freudian slip. To phone up my beloved to say, I got to tell you about this experience that I had. And that's the one she chose to share about the alchemy of feeling oppressed by a man and overcoming that, knowing that he was going to immediately share that story with me. I wept, somatically tingling, vibrating, weeping at that mystical exchange. They asked us if we wanted to hold the next ceremony this springtime, the time of new beginnings, of fresh starts. What was a hell no a week ago is now warming up to be a yes. because my physical human self feels like what an evolution from a year ago, from me having more divine authority, sovereignty over myself, multidimensionally. Because if I don't feel safe in my human self, I am so divinely protected in all of the realms that I can send another self to go and have that medicine experience and still reap all the rewards of the medicine as though I had sipped every drop. And I get to be here now saying that I feel ready to hold this space. I feel ready to come back around this circle because the women are coming back. Because that divine feminine, that wife of the medicine man, she's going to be there. And she's going to say, we have transcended beyond the traditions of peyote. We can still have reverence for the institution, for the structures, but we get to evolve beyond them. That's the gift, that's the spirit, that's the ring of Gaia, that's the promise of Gaia as she returns now, as we shift our planet through a new way of being. We're shifting out of one way of humanity into a completely new way of being. We had been literally limited by gravity. And now, through this ascension journey, that's not just happening to us because we are nature. Earth, Gaia herself is going through a spiritual awakening as she is taking in more light. And we are the byproduct because this is a symbiosis, synergetic experience. This is why we put our prayers into the water, into the tropical vibe Celsius. And then we become the embodiment of those prayers. Moving beyond, transcending beyond. Now I got to understand that my sister got to have an experience that was medicine for me, because I would have really suffered. I'm going to change that narrative. My human self observes the story that would have been really hard to have been sitting there a year later, again, after deconstructing this patriarchy, this oppression, this power over structure within me, to sit in a hypnotic state around medicine, to have a man give me rules and tell me what I needed to do, when I could use the restroom, how I could resource myself through medicine and my divine connection with the earth. And as I wept with my partner, I got to say, wow, this is so beautiful that now this woman is in this space. And now we know that we can go beyond these traditions. We don't have to follow them. We can always get up from the circle. We can always resource ourselves. And now I also get to be in the embodiment of someone that feels comfortable enough to go to every single woman. If that shaman comes to our space, if we hold space for a peyote meeting on our land, and that man wants to still operate with any of those traditions, I get to help people to transcend beyond the traditions without any judgment, to say, I want to offer another perspective. Choose it or leave it behind. Same way you get to do with everything that he says, because that's the sovereignty that we get to have in this life. But it was that divine time, that sacred space that I cultivated with my sister yesterday, that we got to somatically process that, where I shared with her, someone again fighting for gender equality, reminding us all that we are deserving to be safe, peaceful, happy, and free and autonomous in every single moment. Nobody is allowed to tell us how to spend our time and how to treat our bodies, what to do with our bodies. Nobody has that right but us. And so we had a moment together of celebrating that. And through celebrating that, she got to activate the awareness to my multidimensional self to say, hey, babe, guess what? I've been having dreams of us in medicine ceremony, which I also have too. And she said to me, this is the evolution now. And as I rediscover, as it says in the Gene Keys, light doesn't travel. Our consciousness around light travels. We are here now in every fractal, in every story, in every way. So after we go through our own shadow, we start to transmute the collective stories, the collective shadows of oppression. We get to unpack the ancestral karmic wounds that have been with us through the creation, through all time and space, on all dimensions. And we get to transcend beyond space and time. So I got to keep my human self safe. And I still got to get every little drop of medicine, of peyote, because I'm multidimensional and I'm a medicine woman. And my star seed self astral projected, not remote viewing, baby, remote doing. Astral projected into that medicine ceremony to observe that experience. I get to have the divine messengers of my sister that physically sat there in her human self and opened herself up to that experience, and her courage and her bravery for doing that. I'm so grateful to her. I'm so grateful that she was a channel to immediately connect with my beloved, to say, I want to share this story with you. He didn't sit in ceremony, and he immediately got the medicine of ceremony completely brought into him through this divine feminine channel. And as we're sitting here cultivating more retreats around holding divine space as the masculine, as the feminine, in a sacred container where we both show up as a team, no one oppressing the others. We come in full sacred balance, in sacred union. He got to see what that sounded like. He got to hear the evolution of the traditions that he respects so much. And he got to get his own little permission slip of transcending beyond. This is the only way that we do things. This was the structure. This was the template. And 1 year later, look at the way the template is shifting. And the way that it's shifting in my microcosm is there's more of the presence of the divine masculine, the commitment to showing up and putting the intention in that we want to learn. We want to create the space for magic, and then creating enough space for the freedom of the femininity in all of us to flow in order to be the magic. I've had such a dance in the shamanic spaces since way before I was ever conscious of it. And the gift of silence is something I will say, which feels like the most profound space. I have a deep desire for a Vipassana retreat, and I'm calling that in. And I recognize the sacred pause, just the micro moment of intentional stillness, the space between a thought, the magic of the imagination when it gets to be tuned into and turn on and activated, generates such a playful, imaginative space with fairies and unicorns and dragons and scenarios of fantastical beauty, not confined to any structure. That's where I find the most ecstasy and bliss. And I can find it in silence. And for me, I feel like there's a code within that silence that also comes with the mystery of death, of the transmutation when a soul goes from one way of being into another, from physical form into the astral realms. We do this all the time. We go from a physical form into another way of being. We shift, we shape shift. So one of the conversations my sister had with me yesterday was saying that she is feeling more called by the universe to become a death doula. And she was asking me, how does that feel for you? I know that you walk between the journey of life and death. What does feeling like a death doula feel like to you? And I felt my Buddhist yogi lives turning on to remember that we get the opportunity to die every single day. And I choose to do that on my yoga mat. I stretch, I move my body, I get rid of those samskaras that have been stuck, that get stuck in the physical form, and I rinse them out of my body. And that's my death process. I end in corpse pose or shavasana, and I give thanks for my death and for my rebirth. And through that space, that purification space, I may have a little bit more energy or a little insight, an aha moment, a revelation, an inspired thought, an aligned action. That yoga mat is that masculine principle. It's the container for the magic to come through, that consistent devotion to showing up in a yoga practice. Right now, shout out, always shout out, forever shout out to Yoga with Adrienne. She has a completely free series on YouTube, although you can also support her with her Find What Feels Good channel as well. And she gives guided journeys, yogic journeys. And right now, January is the guided journey of flow. So I'm doing that with her and going on each day as part of my morning rituals, part of my 40 days of devotion, which is really daily devotion. Once again, this is the reality. This is the realism. Every single day, in every single moment, I am creating a sacred intention with how I devote my most precious resource, which is my time, which is my breath, which is my energy. And so as I get to hold virtual spaces, and I get to share my energy, and I get to share the channel that's continuously being purified through a commitment of devotion, the masculine principle, I allow myself to learn how to be in right relation with these spiritual teachings again, coming back through this ancient memory of being a witch, of being a spiritual teacher, of being a high priestess, and allowing myself to not just be a death doula, but being someone who's so sacred in their living that I find that every moment, every one of us gets to be a death doula because we're purifying the wheel of samskara, I'm so intentional with my words. This is the gift of etymology. This is when we realize that part of this vibrational world comes down to the etymology. How are we speaking to ourselves? Because that's the world that we're creating. When I recreate myself, recreation is camp for me. This is fun. These are these modern mystery schools where I get to discover new ways of being in the mystery, being radically alive. One moment in my human self, coming onto this portal. Another moment in my astral self, in my multidimensional starseed self. And I show up in my sister's dreams and we hold medicine space together. And then we come back in the physical and we integrate that and we share about it. That's the magic of going beyond this Maya, is that my imagination doesn't just have to live in the confines of my imagination anymore. Now I share mystical space in modern mystery schools and intangible space, pulling cards with my human sister. I've had a lot of codes come through me and I'm still integrating the codes. And I was thinking about it as we come to an end here. My grandfather died, and I may have shared this story on another Gene Keys call. Forgive me for hearing the medicine twice. But when I was 14 years old, my human self experienced the first human loss. And it was the loss of my grandfather. And if I can be honest, he was my favorite relative. And the one that I felt the most closely connected with, this divine masculine principle. He would make his hands into a swing and he would swing with me. He also had a physical swing at his house and he would swing me. He brought me into higher planes of dimensions, even in our human journey. It was no wonder he would be my spiritual guide that would come through when I had my first loss. So when he died, I had a spirit come through for 3 weeks, a physical man, a presence that sat at my bedside. I was 14 years old and I don't remember him saying anything. I just remember the codes that came through this medicine of silence. To me, these codes are always available to us, although there are times when our archangels will be with us in moments of darkness. And I believe that our archangels are trying to get through to us more so than they ever have before as we go through a major shift. This week, we have Pluto entering the sign of Aquarius for a 9-month period. It'll move out and then it'll move back in. Pluto's a disruptor. It's the planet of war, transformation, change. These systems of oppression, they may feel like cataclysmic shifts coming to an end. Hopefully we don't feel like this in our microcosm, but we may be experiencing this or seeing this and hearing this in the macro this week or over the next 9 months. Our invitation is to be in this gestation period as we rediscover a way to transcend beyond the structures of limitations that we've had, maybe imposed on us, or maybe that we've imposed on others, or that we have subjected on ourselves. We are entering Pluto coming into the spirit of Aquarius for 20 years. When this planet comes, it's going to shift us for 20 years. We're right at the beginning of this major change. The Aquarius is our starseed self. This is our galactic family. These are our unidentified, beyond label, alien, interdimensional galactic selves. And they're coming through, and they're coming through our dreamscape, and they're coming through the sky, and they're going to keep showing themselves. And our invitation is not to think that we're going crazy, but to recognize that this is us waking up. I have been visited by ships before, and I'm calling in more visits. I'm calling in more mystical experiences that transcend what I think I know about this reality, because we're shifting out of the shadow states. This Kali Yuga is over. We're back in the golden ages. These fractals of light are so present in us that anything that we come in contact with, we will purify, we will alchemize. And so as we come in to this final moment, just inviting this moment of the flame, this fire. Today, the sun is in Capricorn, the moon is in Aries. This is a fire sign, this moon sign. I allow this sign to activate us. What is our service? What are we wanting to stand for? How do we want to be the hero in our journey? We're always seeking justice, whether it's within or without. The reminder, the paradox, it just is. And I can do something about it because I have a voice and because I care. And my love is the most potent healing energy to whatever I invest it into. And maybe I invested into myself right now, and I see how that pours out into something new. That's my prayer. Invest in yourself, create the divine structure, and see how the feminine wants to flow. It's 333, and I'm sending you so much love and blessings. Namaste.